Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to 10 Count. I'm Steve Fault, but on today's edition, we might get a little controversial. We'll see what happens. I'm talking to Austin Aries. How are you doing today?
Good, Steve. How's everything?
I'm doing great. I have three children. They are running around like
Yeah.
maniacs. But besides that, life is good. Help me, Austin. Help me.
Enjoy that dark beard while you have it, because the grays are gonna not
Oh,
too far behind.
yes, I did an interview with Alan Angels, and before that, I dyed my whole beard, not realizing I had to wash it out after.
Oh
So
yeah,
I came down to do an interview with him, and my face looked like it looked like I went to a Halloween store and bought a Tony Stark beard and just put it on
yeah.
my face. It looked awful.
You
It
got to
looked
wash it
awful.
out. Yeah.
But yours is looking great. I'm a little jealous. A little.
Yeah. I got a few. I got a few tricks up my sleeve too to keep this thing dark. So yeah.
That's amazing. But it's funny because every time you're involved with anything, it seems like headlines, wrestling, doesn't matter where you are, you make headlines. How does that make you feel? Because obviously, it's got to make you feel a little bit good and people are caring about what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. When I broke in the business now, going 22 years ago, it was a different time culturally than we're in now. And the whole deal was is you want people to be talking about you. You want them to love you, or you want them to hate you, but you don't want indifference. So, there's a part of me that feels like I've been doing what I was taught by everything I touch seems to create controversy, gets talked about, which for me, that's the name of the game. But in this environment and in this culture, that can also work to your disadvantage as well.
Right. Because I can imagine you saying a certain topic, bring that up, and then suddenly, boom, you're not really in trouble. It's more just people are going to badmouth you on Twitter, but Twitter's not the real world. And I,
Twitter's not the real world, but there are a lot of promoters and companies now that they don't want to deal with or touch anything that has any controversy, right? Because they are worried about that small vocal minority, and we're seeing it across the board. You look at the Kyrie Irving situation. I'm not
right.
agreeing or disagreeing with what he said, or he posted a link to a documentary,
Yep.
and he got in a lot of trouble for it, and he didn't come out and say anything specifically that was anti-Semitic. He just posted a video, and yet there wasn't the same outrage that Amazon is distributing this video on their platform, right? So it's a very interesting time we're in, and you never know. There's going to be somebody upset somewhere about something at all times, and that's why for me, I've just kind of came to this place where talking about control your narrative, and for me to control my narrative is to just surrender, and everyone's going to have their opinion of me. Vast majority of it is based on nothing but rumor and innuendo. Very few of these people who hold these strong opinions about me have ever met me in person, and it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm not here to change people's mind, because I realize that I could spend my whole life trying to convince people I'm not who they think I am, and I'll never actually win that battle. So I'm just going to move on, enjoy my life, enjoy my time here on Earth, and people's opinions of me, that's their problem, not mine.
Of course, you can't make everyone love you. Maybe you can make everyone hate you, but I don't know. We'll
I,
find
I
out.
was, I mean, I was great at that.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
I thought that was the name of the game. And it's funny because for an industry where the people who are smart to it know it's not real, yet when it comes to me, they're convinced it's 100% real. So
Now, that's an interesting question to bring up because some people like, like when I was a kid growing up and watch wrestling, my dad would walk in the room and be like, "Ugh, this is fake, right?" But yet you're like, but then there's a storyline, for instance, we'll bring up like La Resistance, very close about 9/11, Muhammad Hassan, uh,
sure.
you know, those then suddenly like that's too real. Is it too
Yeah.
fake or is it too real? Like you think that people playing terrorists on TV are actually terrorists? You think like that's not true. It's not
Right.
true, but yet you consider wrestling to be fake. But yet, when it comes to a storyline, you're like, "Oh, it's too real. That's too
Yeah.
real." What the hell's that about?
Well, I mean, that is what makes the pro wrestling industry the most unique entertainment form. Is our job is to blur the lines of reality, so people don't know where the realism stops and the fiction begins.
Right.
And I just feel like I've been really good at that over my career, and doing it in a way to where people Again, Bound for Glory, right? Like
Oh,
this
you know, I
huge
was just going to bring that up.
yeah.
Yeah, Bound for
I
Glory
mean, just
2018.
people convinced this was real, and it's like, no, I just blurred the lines and knew how to do it in a way to make you believe that it was real, And when you understand the psychology of the pro wrestling fan, the smart fan, and what they think they know, you can then use that to your advantage to then still work them and fool them
Yes.
because you just that's my job, right? I'm supposed to be the puppeteer, and once I understand where the strings are attached, then I just move those strings and make you dance.
I bet they get a little upset too, because like I know what this is. He's going into business for himself. I know what he's doing. And then it comes out like I've seen an interview with you before where you talked about how like that Bound for Glory 2018 moment you're talking about where John Morrison, you kind of you didn't sold his finisher and the match was kind of over, and then yet everyone would believe that you just got up and walked away on your own, the business, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah, all these opinions. But
right.
really, what you're saying is you were working and was the company aware what you were about to do to
Of
create
course,
this
of course.
storyline narrative of he's gone against the rules of wrestling.
There was a camera waiting for me as I came to the curtain with Scott Demore, which they captured and put on like one of
Oh.
their. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
This is to me, this is the easiest explanation. If none of that was supposed to happen, how would anybody have ever known? They wouldn't have kept a camera on me. They just would have cut the camera.
Yeah.
They would have kept it on John, and you never would have seen me throw my temper tantrum and storm to the back because I wouldn't have been on camera,
Yes.
right? I mean, this is like 101 stuff that even people in the industry that are convinced it happened. It's like, guys, the camera wouldn't stay on somebody doing something that they didn't want to be shown on television.
You say that, but at the same time, when the Montreal Screwjob happened, like they kept rolling those cameras on Bret Hart right in WCW, and people still don't know if that was real or
Makes you
fake.
think.
And
Makes you think,
and
doesn't
that's
it?
and that's the thing. It's like over the years they've been interviewed Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, everybody, Earl Hebner, and everyone has like a their versions keep changing as years go on. I'm
Sure.
not saying if it was real or fake. I'm just saying like they kept those cameras rolling and
But with the
for a
Montreal
reason.
screw job, the only person that wouldn't have been in on it, that wouldn't have known, would have been Brett.
Right.
Right. So Vince very well may have, even if it was legitimate, wanted to keep it rolling to capture that moment.
Right.
Right. But conversely, if I was the only one going in and going rogue against the company's wishes or their knowledge,
True.
why would the company decide to keep that on film and show it and replay it and put it out in a special? That was all devised to create controversy. That my whole concept there was, man, we really have people believing that there's a legitimate issue between me and Morrison, and we can get one more payday out of this. We can get them to want to see one more rematch. So the whole idea was just to keep some heat, create some controversy so that there was still a buzz. And it's what happened, right? I mean, there was the most talked about thing for the next month, millions and millions of views. And my whole thought was, well, hey, there's going to be now hundreds of thousands of people that may not have known Impact Wrestling existed, that knew John Morrison was still wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to hear about this. They're going to check out this 15-second clip, and hopefully it piques their interest to come back and watch the product, and we can grab some new fans.
And then, so what exactly happened after that moment? Because it seemed like it kind of spiraled out of control, where people wanted to believe so hard that you were going to business for yourself that it might have
Yeah.
ruined some momentum that was being built.
So my only regret for that whole situation was passing on the contract offer that was put on the table after
Mm.
that. I never talked about some personal things I was going through at the time, and I just decided that it was in my best interest not to re-sign there. In retrospect, in hindsight, however many years later, I would have made that decision differently. But that definitely created the perception that, when I don't come back and there is no rematch and there's no payoff to this, that it would seem like I just, went into business for myself. And
Right.
so that was really, looking back, if I kick myself, it wasn't for the actual Bound for Glory. It was for not following through with what was planned.
Right. It just kind of reminds me, I don't know why, but of Brian Pillman, all of his WCW antics leading to nothing because eventually he
Sure.
signed to the WWF, got in a really bad car accident and a motorcycle accident, and then everything just nothing added up anymore.
Yeah.
And same thing with you. I imagine it must have been hard after that moment to explain to other promoters, like, oh, no, 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 that was pretend. They're like, well, why don't you work there then? Like,
Right.
if this was part of a storyline, you're telling me you didn't do anything wrong, but yet why don't you work there anymore? It seems that you did something wrong, but you
Sure.
actually didn't, which is very interesting because you're trying to work, but yet people
Yeah,
are
and
don't like
here's the
being
thing,
worked.
like you know, it doesn't matter how many times I repeat this story
Hmm.
and factually give the same
Of
exact
course.
account, people are still going to believe whatever they want to believe. They'll
Yeah.
think I'm lying now. Oh, he's lying. That's fine. I'm so far past it that at this point, the fact that we still talk about it, and anytime someone in any promotion doesn't lay down correctly after the match, they're pulling the Austin Aries. So it's like,
It's a
I've
good thing and a
created,
bad thing.
yeah, I've created something that will live in infamy for a long time. It's all good. I do hope, and I've said this in other interviews, that at some point I do get to go back to Impact Wrestling and at least leave in a different way. My intention was never to be the last thing that the fans there saw me was me giving them the double bird as I stormed off to the back. That's not how I wanted to kind of end scene for my career there. I've had a lot of great moments there, and I owe that company a lot for my
Yeah.
success. So we'll see. I'm still going at it. They're still chugging along, and maybe down the road we'll reunite.
I know they recently, I think it was last year, they celebrated their 20th anniversary, and every year someone would say, "Oh, TNA is going to close. Oh, TNA is going to
Oh,
close.
it's
Oh,
been,
TNA is going to
yeah,
close."
yeah, so, yeah.
20 years, 20 years. So those TNA LOL jokes need to die because I cannot. And maybe, just maybe, the perception is Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan coming in to fans believe that was kind of like you ruined everything we loved. It's like getting a makeover, and that's the perception of fans online. That's
Yeah,
why those like TNA LOL jokes still exist because of that random time of seeing these people come in, and then like the nasty boys suddenly show up, and you're like, oh, what's
sure.
going on? What's going on? We the X Division is what put, at least for me, TNA on the map. I was buying those weekly Wednesday pay-per-views. I was
Right.
watching on Fox Sports Net on 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. I was
Sure.
doing it. I was enjoying it.
Well, and if you look now, however many years later, at the guys that were kind of the foundation that TNA was built on, look where they've all gone and what they've all done since.
Yeah.
I mean, it really changed the landscape of this industry, right? And
Yeah.
so, TNA and Impact is hugely important to the history of this industry. And I think to your point, I think that's part of the internet fandom, and it's in everything, not just pro wrestling, but when people take something that's kind of the underdog and it becomes their thing,
Yeah.
when it starts to become more mainstream or popularized, or someone again like a Hogan or something comes in, there's a tendency to have this backlash because you're taking my thing and changing it,
Yeah.
and we liked it the way it was. Sports is the same thing, right? The small market team goes and spends a bunch of big money on some free agents, and people get a little upset because they're not playing their guys that came through the minor leagues, and so it's
I think of Metallica when they cut their hair as like an example of like,
yeah, sure, yeah, yeah,
everyone loved them. Oh, rock and roll.
sure,
They're
yeah,
against the establishment. They're signed,
yeah,
right?
right,
They're signed to like a big
yeah, right,
label. It's not like they're making records in their basement.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
they cut their
exactly,
hair and everyone was so upset about that.
yep,
But I want to talk about one more thing, a little controversial in the internet. This has nothing to do with you. I just really want your opinion since you've been
sure,
in the business for so long. NWA recently had their Hard Times 3 pay-per-view. Formerly Brodus Clay Tyrus, he became their champion. Again, it's Twitter, so we'll take that as a
sure,
grain of salt. Nobody's happy about this. And maybe there's a difference between, obviously, as you know, the difference between, oh, he's got heat or turn off the TV heat. So, like,
sure.
what's your thought on that? Because everyone believes that Fox Nation is going to bring in NWA. These are just rumors. NWA to be a streaming platform, and obviously that's a good business deal.
Mhm.
But for the fans who are watching who do not want this at all, how do you like
Well,
business wise, fan wise, put them together?
yeah, I think the problem is pro wrestling isn't owned by any political ideology.
Yes.
And I feel like in the last, amount of time, there's been a shift in the demographics and I guess you could probably say the ideology of these internet wrestling fans are the most vocal. And so they feel, like they want something that represents what they believe. And so anybody who doesn't agree with their belief system
Mm,
is now the enemy. And now we don't want to watch them because they don't believe what I believe. And
yes.
my whole thought is I thought entertainment is supposed to be the time when we turn off our belief systems, when we turn off our problems, and we just, kind of enjoy the entertainment for what it is. Because if you really started to break down, who the athlete was, who the musician is, who the actor is behind the camera, when you take them off screen and you get into their private life and their personal beliefs or their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, I think the reality is there going to be very, very little people that you actually 100% align with on all these things. I mean, and it's funny that we seem to dismiss a lot of the shortcomings of our athletes, of our entertainers, but when it comes to pro wrestling, it doesn't seem to be the case. But I think to your point is, there's a small vocal minority, and let's be honest, a lot of them find ways not to pay to watch pro wrestling. Okay,
Yeah,
and now if you're talking about getting on a Fox platform, that's a whole big piece of the pie that's going to continue business going.
yep.
And so from a business standpoint, you don't want to alienate your fan base, but you also have to understand that these people that are incessantly, bitching about everything and will continue to find something to complain about, that's not your fan base, right? Those are the people that just want to complain, and so those aren't people that are pulling out their money to buy tickets, to buy pay-per-views. And also, you can talk about the passionate hardcore wrestling fan base, or you can talk about the mainstream wrestling fan, and that those are two different sizes of slices of pizza that we're talking about. And so, I think you need to balance it out. I think that, you know, Billy, it's Billy's company, and so guess what? A lot of wrestling fans might not align with Billy Corrigan on his political beliefs or his personal beliefs or even his beliefs of how you run a wrestling company, and that's okay. And if you really are feeling that strongly about it, start your own wrestling company and do it a different way.
That's true. I know. There's always the idea of someone saying like, "Well, I watch wrestling, so I know how it should be presented." Okay, well, I like food, but I'm not a chef, so
Sure.
I don't need to go into into the back and be like, excuse me, chef,
Yeah.
this steak is not right." In my
It's
personal opinion.
it's always that's always baffled me, right? And this isn't to cut on Dave Meltzer, but Dave Meltzer's reviews and critiques are held to the highest standard in our profession.
Yeah.
But I always ask, like, how many matches has Dave Meltzer had or even had to put together with another guy? Like the art of putting a match together in the back and then going out and performing it. Like there's a nuance and there's something to that if you've never experienced it, you have a limited knowledge of. Listen, anybody can be a critic. Anyone can say, "Ooh, I like this food. I don't like this food." But to go into the detail of judging another chef on how he prepared the food when you've never actually prepared food for yourself,
Yeah.
it baffles me. And so yes, there's this. I think a lot of wrestling fans, well, I don't need to, do it to have an opinion. No, you don't. But there's such thing as an informed opinion. And you can talk about it all day and you can study it all day, but if you haven't actually done it, there's going to be a certain part of experience and knowledge that you just aren't going to have. And so if I'm going to hold all opinions the same, or I'm going to weight them based on those criteria, people that have actually done it for a living, I think have a little more weight when it comes to their opinion. And so, it comes like this. I've never run a wrestling company. I've never had the keys to the car. I've been a part of a lot of wrestling companies. I've been a part of almost every major wrestling company there is. And I've sat in different seats and I've been in creative meetings and I've been in production meetings and production trucks. But that doesn't mean I know what it's like to run a wrestling company. And
Hmm.
I've always said that I might have my opinions, but they're coming in a place of, where I'm a bit naive to what it actually takes day in and day out to run this. And until you've done it, as I always say, until you've walked a mile in their boots, just keep that in mind when you're holding your opinion so near and dear to your heart.
Right. I think I've talked to Billy a few times already, and every time I talk to him, I've said I won't talk about it anymore with him. The women's pay-per-view Empower, because every time he talks about it, it becomes this controversial hot topic because
Sure.
it, for instance, Billy's like, "Oh, it's my money, so I don't want to put money down on women wrestlers that I don't think are going to get my bills paid for. I don't want to pay
Sure.
$1 million and not make $1 million. That's not how is that a business plan? That's a terrible business plan. But when he says that, it makes everyone so angry that it creates headlines and
Right. It
clicks
makes
and all
everybody
that.
so angry, but nobody's angry if I say it, people will be angry. I love basketball. I don't watch the WNBA.
Right.
Does that make me a bad person?
No.
If I think that the level of basketball that I enjoy watching is the NBA, not the WNBA. Doesn't mean that I'm misogynistic or I hate women or anything like that. And if I was gonna buy a basketball team, I probably wouldn't look to buy a WNBA team. I'd probably look to buy an NBA team, just from a business standpoint,
Exactly. I was gonna say.
right?
I wanted to save your
Just
yeah.
from yeah, just from a business standpoint,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
so, we need to stop being over emotional about these topics and look at them for what they are in their totality, in their total essence of what we're trying to say,
Hmm.
and stop trying to label everybody as anti this or phobic that
Yeah.
just because they don't align 100% with what we believe.
Hmm.
Like, hey, listen, I'm not a big believer of putting your pronouns in your bio, but if that's what you want to do because it makes you feel like you're, more, more virtuous towards other people's feelings, go for it.
Right.
Right. But then don't sit there and turn it around on me. And because I, have an opinion on that it makes me somehow phobic or anti or hateful.
Hmm.
It's just, we have different opinions on things. And, where are we now in society where we're not allowed to sit down with somebody who has a different opinion and still be respectful and have, respectful discourse? Because to me, that's where we learn. If we keep ourselves, and I think this is what social media is one of the negatives of social media, is it allows people to keep themselves in an echo chamber of only people who say exactly what they want to hear and exactly what they think.
Mm.
And the minute that they're exposed to a different thought process or something that goes against what they believe, they can't handle it and they get emotional. And then when they get emotional, they start attacking this person, and start to try to basically discredit them as a human being because they don't care as
Right.
much as I do, or they're right. And
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And I've got a lot of opinions, but my opinions aren't black and white. They're not blue or red. You can't put them in a nice little box with a label. It sits down, you got to sit down and have a 30-45 minute conversation before you really get to know what my opinions are on things, because they don't fit in one of the two narratives that you're given every day to choose from. You're either
Right.
this or that,
You're
right?
either
You're
a
blue.
circle or a square.
And it's
Trying to.
funny because I've been called a snowflake. Back when I was critical of President Trump, I was a snowflake and I was a libtard and a soy boy. And now I'm a MAGA and I'm a right and I'm a, it's
Yeah.
like, because it's like people can't think beyond these like, these two ideologies that they've been forced to have to feel like you have to belong to one or the other. And so I kind of chuckle that, I'm not, I have no political affiliation. You really want to get into my thoughts on politics, we'd have to do a whole nother interview. But again, it's
We'll set
pro
that up. We
wrestling.
will set that up to talk about
It's
it. Don't
pro
you?
wrestling, guys.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, they pretend to fight each other in the ring and then they go to the back and they're paid by the same person, just
No,
like pro wrestling.
you expose
It's
the
pro
business.
wrestling. I know everybody wants to think their vote matters. Spoiler alert, it doesn't matter.
It only matters what county you're in when you vote,
The only
technically.
vote, the only vote, the only vote I really think matters at the end of the day is the vote with your pocketbook, what you
There you go.
spend your money on. That's what they pay attention to. You want to vote for something stop buying things that you don't believe in, right?
Mm.
But again, then you got to start digging. Where did my Nike shoes really come from? Who really put those together? How much money
Who
did
made
they pay? What's
my
my living
iPhone?
conditions? Right. But who made my iPhone, my flat
Yeah.
screen TV?
Yeah.
Again, people ask about my vegan lifestyle. I just decided to no longer contribute financially to something that I didn't want to be a part of. I didn't want to be a part of the, abuse and slaughter of other living creatures, of other living beings, whether it's a dog, a cat, a pig, a cow, all the same to me. And I didn't want to keep giving my money for someone else to do this. And so I just decided to stop supporting it with my dollar. Right. And that to me is more effective than going to the voting booth. And as we can see, if you guys haven't figured it out, the voting system's not on the up and up, right? Like they can't even count votes on time. Nobody knows for sure if the vote was or wasn't counted appropriately, right? There's so much going on, behind the curtain, but you got the Wizard of Oz back there going, no, don't look at the man behind the curtain, just keep putting your pin on your chest and making it feel like you did something worthwhile today.
I have a sticker that says I voted. That sticker
Right.
makes me feel good inside.
Sure. It's like we're in the Truman Show. We're just like 4 generations into Truman never figured it out. Like Truman's our great grandfather, but he never figured it out. And now we're trying to explain to people how no, this all isn't real. And like, what do you mean it's not real? My grandpa said. It's like
Yeah. Well, grandpa lived in a different world.
Don't even get me into the medical system. Let's not even start.
I was say we can definitely schedule another time to talk about all these other crazy topics because I'm.
If you don't get deplatformed after this, Steve.
We'll be fine. I don't know what headline they'll grab from what you said today.
I'm sure.
But they're gonna grab 2 lines.
Aries hates women's basketball. He says women can't play basketball as good as men. Like, so
I don't know how that will do in the wrestling community, but it might work for views. You're right.
Well, let's be honest here. If all of a sudden LeBron James decided that he now identified as a woman, would he not just go and completely destroy the WNBA? Like put up like 100 points and 50 rebounds a game?
He's a good player, though. You have to use like a different example if you wanted to use that argument. Maybe.
Or how about the fact that, what Venus or Serena Williams played like the number 265th ranked men in the world and she lost.
Right.
The guy was drunk at the time.
Oh my God. You're gonna get me in trouble. They're gonna get me in trouble.
But let me also say this. Those things being true doesn't mean that I don't think women should have the opportunity to go and play sports or do these things to the highest level. Right. But I also do believe like we divide sports on biology for a reason. Right. Not ideology, but biology. Yeah. Okay. And I think that, what we're really being is we're being insensitive towards females when we're letting men who now identify as females play women's sports and dominate it. And I think that if we're in, but also if the women don't want to stand up and speak up for their own defense, then we can't, right? Then whatever I say doesn't really matter,
Yeah.
But again, it's a complex issue with some nuance that we can't just fit in a headline, although they're going to, and I can't wait to see what it is.
Me too. I don't know what you said. So many things that I'm not. You said so many things. I'm not sure what will happen. Let's get a wrestling headline in before we have to wrap up here. AEW. When are we going to see an AEW? It seems like everybody and their mother is showing up there, and I'm waiting because I'm shocked that you haven't been signed there yet.
I don't know if that's in the cards, to be honest. I wonder, at least have maybe heard things behind, and again, it's, everything you take with a grain of salt when you're hearing things through back channels, but I might be too controversial for them. Maybe they don't want the backlash from their fan base on the internet. And it's, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, so to speak, and so that's a decision they have to make. I certainly haven't really reached out on my end. They haven't reached out on their end. So it's not one of those situations where, I've been trying to get work there and they've been passing on it or vice versa. They've been trying to bring me in and I've been declining. Mm-hmm. We just haven't really extended the hand either way. They're definitely doing some interesting stuff now with the Chris Jericho versus all the former, Ring of Honor champions. I've not been shy that Chris is one of the few guys in the industry that I've never been in the ring with that I would love to have a chance to get in there and do something creative, you know.
I like it.
But we'll see. Listen, they certainly don't need me. They've got more talent than they have time slots for, and part of the backlash is guys not getting enough TV time. So I can only imagine, bringing someone like me in is only going to knock somebody down, on the totem pole for TV time, and that would be some backlash there. So who knows? Maybe down the road, if the right situation presents itself, if I love the opportunity to go in there and show the fans and also show the people in back that that maybe have a strong opinion about me, that don't really know me, that uh, I can be a positive asset to a locker room. I can be good for business. I'm at a point in my career now where obviously there's probably more behind me than there's in front of me. And there's a lot of young talent that I think I could help out and pass some knowledge on to. And I've had my time in the spotlight. I'm not trying to keep myself in the spotlight. I'm trying to kind of help that next generation, that's going to kind of take the reins and be that new crop of men and women. So, and that's what I enjoy doing with the Control Your Narrative. Is kind of helping these guys out that are trying to get to where I've been. And so we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I'm just enjoying life, man. Doing a lot of international traveling. Just got back from Saudi Arabia.
Nice.
Yes, I went and wrestled in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure that some people hate me for that for some reason, taking some blood money or whatever they're going
The
to say.
WWE has pay-per-views that they make more money than WrestleMania twice fold over. So if they want to
Yeah.
argue with you, they got to argue with the entire WWE company. Though I think we do need to end this right now because I have another person who's going to create some headlines probably after you coming up next, who's trying to get into my
Beautiful.
Zoom right now, Mr.
All
Bobby
right.
Fish. So we're gonna have this.
Oh,
This is part one, folks. This is part one of me and Austin talking right now because I have so many more questions that I want to talk about, but timing is the essence. We have to stop now. But folks, thank you so much for being on 10 Count Austin Aries. I cannot wait for part two. We'll see what happens. What about flag football with women versus boys? We'll find out his opinion on it next time. See you
thanks,
guys,
Steve.
and we'll see you next
Okay.
time. Bye bye.